Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Mills, and I am this is the Texas Real Estate and Finance Podcast, and I am a mortgage broker here in the DFW area. My team and I focus on helping local agents grow their business by providing insight into all aspects of real estate. We can show you how to better market yourself, provide referrals to great real estate related vendors in the area that will take amazing care of your clients and provide some simple tips and tricks to streamline your business so you can help more buyers and sellers. So if you'd like to have a conversation about your business and what we can do, please do not hesitate to reach out. And of course, if you have any buyers or sellers any buyers needing to get pre-approved to purchase a home, we'd love to take great care of them as well. There's my commercial for the afternoon. Speaking of great real estate related referrals, today I am pleased to welcome Regan Parsons to the podcast. And you get the fanfare. See,
all right.
So many moving parts here, man. So many moving parts. So Regan's the owner of Correct Roofing and Foundation. They have been in business over 10 years here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Regan and his team specialize in residential and commercial roofing, restoration, and they also offer solar installation, which is it's a new thing for them, but they're working in that direction, and are foundation repair experts first and foremost. And that's the reason I got Regan to come in with me today, because we're going to chat a little bit about that and kind of offer up some insight into what all goes into foundation issues. So how are you doing these days, my friend?
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
Doing great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you came in. We're going to, get into a little bit about your business and kind of talk about what you guys do. But I really want to get kind of into detail a little bit more about the foundation side of things and what all that entails, especially how common it is here in Dallas-Fort Worth, and then what to look for, how to get it fixed, talk about maybe even some of the costs involved. And, like I said before, we might even get into some old Pantego Christian Academy baseball stories if you want. So we'll just see where everything goes. But so before we get into all that, though, why don't you tell me a little bit how you even got into the contracting world? The roofing and foundation world? How'd that happen?
Well, you probably think it was my dad, but it wasn't.
No.
He's in commercial construction, but yeah, just not long out of high school. Aaron Finn, another Pantego Christian Academy guy. He ended up as marketing director over at PermaPier and brought me on over there on the marketing team. And then not long after that, they pulled me into the sales team evaluating properties. And so
that just kind of went from there.
That started there.
So it's just one of the things where you just had a buddy of yours, you're looking for a gig and just like, hey, let's see if we can make this work.
Yeah, I was positive I was never going to get into construction. Watch my dad drive around and yell at people on his phone before our baseball games. I was never going to do it.
Yes. Shout out to Reggie if he's watching, by the way. One of my favorite baseball coach of all time.
Yeah, he's a good one.
So funny story about that, just because So Regan and I met at Pantego Christian Academy. We'd play baseball together for 1 year. You were actually, I think when you got there, you were a sophomore, maybe?
I was
a
freshman.
You were a freshman.
You were a senior. I was a freshman.
Yes. So you were a pitcher and I was a catcher. We got to know each other a little bit there. And then you and Lonnie came in at that time.
Yeah, Lonnie and Brandon Piles.
Yes, Brandon too.
I played second mainly. I pitched a little bit. Brandon and Lonnie were on our select team.
That's
our
right.
Warriors team.
That's right.
They were freshmen. Stud pitchers.
Yeah, they were. I mean, now granted, we're at a TAPS private Christian school or whatever. So, it wasn't like the world was being dominant, but they were the best pitchers we had on the team by a mile.
They were probably the best pitchers
no
in
offense,
our
Brad,
district, too.
If you're watching too. Brad Gilbert. No, Nate too. I forgot about Nate.
Yeah, Nate. Nate's pretty good. Nate was good too.
Yeah, Nate was good too. So
both those guys are good.
But it was funny because I don't know if you ever knew this story, but when you came on board, when you guys got there, the year before y'all got there, we had a different coach before your dad got there to coach. This was such a breath of fresh air when he showed up. But our coach previously, and I won't say his name, but he, to say that baseball wasn't his first sport would probably be an understatement a little bit. And Brad Gilbert and I and Jack and Nate and all this, we used to joke because when we were playing, we didn't have signs. You know how, you got your third base, first base coach. First, we only had one coach for the most part. And then, so we didn't have a first base coach, just had a third base coach. And then, during the game when you're looking for the take sign or the bunt or, swing away or steal or whatever, there weren't he didn't give us any signs. So it was like a couple of weeks into the season. Cause that was my first year when we were there. Chris Snodgrass was there playing at the time too. He was a little older than he was a year older than you or than me.
Yo, your junior year was the first year there?
Yeah. My junior year's first year. I was only there for.
It's been a long time. I forgot that.
Basically like a year and a half.
I was at y'all's state game where you got eliminated.
Oh yeah, that was a whole lot of fun. Yeah,
it was a good game, but
no, it wasn't.
Been a long time.
It wasn't a good game. I think we lost like 56-7 or something. Oh,
maybe I was at the game before that.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound familiar.
No. That one was the state championship game, and we got our butts kicked. But anyway, so the funny thing is we finally talked to coach. We're like, hey, look, we really need to get some signs down so that we all are on the same page as to what we're doing. So if I'm hitting and he's stealing, we know whether I need to swing or not, if we're doing a hit and run, whatever. Right. And so he was like, okay. And he came up with colors. The signs, he was going to yell out colors. Oh so standing on third base, he would yell out like red or fuchsia. That was the one we joke about, but he would yell it out. And so, after the first time he yells fuchsia and we steal second base, like they pretty much got
what you're doing.
Yeah, they got it figured out. So it wasn't that tough. But what was funny is, so we were begging him after about, 2 or 3 games of that, because everybody knew what we were doing. Like, please, can we just have regular signs? Like, we'll do them. If we could coach third, like we'll send one of our guys out there. And it was he made us actually, he made a deal with us. Like we had to win like 2 or 3 games in a row or something like that in order for us to be allowed to like have regular signs. He might have been mad at us.
Couldn't because of the colored signs.
Yes. Yeah. So he was yelling. No, we actually got to the point where I think, it was either myself or Brad or somebody be standing on third base and we're actually giving, normal signs that you get in a baseball game. We got to that point, but I think he was mad because, at some point in the season, and I don't recall exactly who it was. It might have been Brad, but I won't throw him under the bus if it wasn't, but I just did. We were on a road. We were going somewhere to go play like Waco or something like that. And he put, I guess it's X-Lax in his coffee on the, as we were, so he's driving the bus. We'd make a stop at a gas station to go in there and we buy the X-Lax. And while he's in there, we put it in his coffee and then take the bus a little bit further. And, we have to stop about 30 minutes up the road because he's got a problem.
Man.
So yeah, we had all kinds of hijinks in those days. There's no doubt, but all that stuff's behind us. But
I can't remember who that coach was, but if I could, I'd find a way to get this podcast to him.
Yes. Yeah. I think he figured it out a little bit later on, maybe. But it was definitely an adventure. I mean, anybody that played at that time, and that was, I think we had Bernie Diamond was on that team and Chris Snodgrass and Brad Gilbreth and Jack Jenkins and Nate Van Cleve. And, we were a bunch of trouble to say the least. So, anyway, that's the old baseball story there, I guess. So what was it? Was there anything, cause obviously your dad, did a lot of contracting work over the years.
Still does actually.
He's still kicking around, man. He didn't give it up. He's still going.
Doing the Texas Roadhouse in Burleson.
Wow.
And, is it Tyler? He's been building all over the country, but he got these 2 local ones now, so he gets to stay home a little bit.
Yeah, I guess I'm not surprised because I don't ever see your dad like slowing down. He's pretty much on the go all the time.
Still.
Yes, yeah.
He's the exact same as you remember. I promise.
I loved your dad, man. He was great, and he was one of the, I didn't have a lot of exposure to different coaches at that point, but he was definitely one of the best.
He was a very good coach, basketball and baseball.
He was, and y'all had the batting cage and everything. So we actually got real uniforms the year you guys showed up. Like
he ran it just like his select because he was running all those select teams back then. Too.
I know. When did he stop doing that?
After Jarrett and I quit playing.
After y'all quit playing.
Yep, that was it.
Yeah, I coached my son for a while. I started coaching him when he was like in kindergarten or whatever. And then I coached him all the way up until about 6th grade. He's in 7th grade now. And then I retired. I was done with all that at that point, but
seems like y'all had fun doing it though.
Yeah. Those are fun days. Do you have kids?
I do. Two girls.
Okay.
My 12-year-old's a competitive dancer. My 6-year-old is too. Is her first year doing it. My 12-year-old's a competitive dancer.
Nice.
She's hardcore into it.
Yeah. So you get to go have all the
I'm
costumes.
A crazy dance dad.
Yeah. Are you building sets yet? Are you there yet? Yes.
I help carrying them onto the stage and unload them out of the trailer and all that. No, I don't build them.
Yeah, my wife did that. She told me stories about all that when she was growing up, about all the dance competitions and everything.
Man.
So
it's intense.
Oh yeah,
it reminds me of select baseball.
Oh yeah, no, it's just a whole other side of things.
It really is.
Yeah,
no, I know a lot more about dance than I thought I was going to in my life.
Do you ever fill in from time to time? Get out there?
No, they haven't asked me yet.
No, you haven't had to step out there and.
I'm waiting for my opportunity to show what I can do.
Do y'all have to travel quite a bit?
We do some. Yeah, we'll go to Houston this year, but then nationals, we always travel. It's either Vegas or Orlando. Last year was Nashville. This year is Sandusky, Ohio, surprisingly.
So you go from Nashville or Orlando or Vegas to Ohio.
I get to go to the home of Callahan Auto Parts.
Oh, yeah, yes. That's right. Okay.
I've heard it's a pretty cool town, though.
Is it really?
I knew nothing about it before, but
I've been to Ohio before. We have a branch actually for our company that's up there. When they came in, we kind of went up there and got them all set up. We do recruiting and stuff for that. But so it's really, what's crazy about Ohio is it's beautiful. Like, especially they have like fall, which is crazy because there's all kinds of colors. There's nothing that ever happens around here. But it's not Vegas though, right?
No, well, honestly, I'm not crazy about Vegas. No? And then we've done Disney enough times now. It's going to be a breath of fresh air. It's an hour west of Cleveland. So get to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, nice. Yes.
My kids to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That'll be
and
awesome.
Myself.
Yeah.
Maybe catch an Indian.
Well, NFL, Canton's, is it close to there?
I don't know. I haven't looked.
Yeah, because we went to Canton. I actually went to Canton.
They'd be bored to tears, but I'd make them do it.
So having the two girls, is there, obviously I'm absolutely certain you love your daughters and all the stuff that you do with them, but do you kind of miss, he was like, man, if I'd had that boy, the baseball and the football and all that?
I'm so obsessed with sports.
Yeah.
My girlfriend will tell you, I get my fix. Yeah. And we got friends whose kids play baseball. I go to their games.
Yeah.
My brother, I got a nephew be coming up, so I'm sure I'll coach him some. So
nice.
Now I'm just trying to enjoy my daughter's dance career where I got her before she goes to college and Hartley if she decides to keep doing it. Because it's she sacrifices a lot.
Oh yeah.
Miss a lot of birthday parties, a lot of sleepovers. And
absolutely.
If I had to make her do it, we wouldn't do it.
No.
It really ain't cheap either, just like any of that stuff. But she loves it. So, it's her passion.
Well, that's good. It's hard. You got to expose kids to a lot of different things and kind of try to figure out exactly what they're into and, what their passions are. And it's really cool when they can find something at a younger age and kind of really get into it.
Yeah. She's loved it since she was 3.
Oh, wow.
Like,
so she never
had to make her go to rehearsal.
That's great.
There's been a few tears for birthday parties, but that's about it.
Yeah. I mean, they're kids, that's going to happen. So, well, that's awesome, man. I'm glad to hear that. I know my wife and I talk about this all the time with our kids that my daughter's 15, my son's 13, and it's just a matter of time before they're going to be out of the house. And then I'm like, what the hell are we going to do with ourselves?
Like
when
a blink of an eye, really. Where
you're
at. And
it really is. And we every weekend, like for the next 4 months, pretty much, we either have a baseball tournament or we have a volleyball tournament every single weekend.
Yeah.
And my son practices baseball 3 days a week. My daughter practices volleyball 2 to 3 days a week. So it's like every night we have a practice. Every weekend we have a tournament. There's no slowing down with that stuff. But
it'll end someday. It doesn't last forever, so you got to enjoy it while you can.
Yep.
It seemed like it went on forever when we were their age.
Yeah.
And now it's
a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
And then it's gone. Yeah. And then you're sitting around with your spouse going, okay, what the hell are we going to do now?
Do I play softball this season? Can my knees handle it?
Yeah. Getting a little old. Can everything hold up and keep rolling? We'll see. So, all right, man. Well, I really want to get into, kind of the nuts and bolts now of everything. So, obviously you've been doing this for a long time. I actually, you fixed foundation for one of my lake properties. You did some work for my sister. So, you've done a great job. I've never heard anything but rave reviews about your service and how you guys, handle the communication with the clients, make sure everybody understands what's happening. So, so if you guys are looking for somebody, if you're having foundation issues or roofing issues, please, reach out to Regan. But most of the time on a daily basis, I work with realtors and buyers when they are trying to purchase a house, or even, we do refinances too, obviously. And there can be issues. Sometimes we get appraisals back if somebody sees something that causes a problem. But, this is one of the biggest purchases of someone's life. Like, it's a major transaction, right?
Right.
And the very first thing that most buyers have to get when they purchase a new home, get under contract, is a home inspection. right? And that's where a lot of this stuff kind of often comes up, or at least gets indicated to some extent in the beginning, saying, hey, there might be an issue here, there might be an issue there, especially in North Texas, because foundation seems to be something that's pretty common.
It's very common.
Foundation issues here seem to happen quite a bit. But from your point of view as a contractor and as a roof guy and a foundation guy, what, when you see or when you hear from home inspectors, or when you get a home inspection report from somebody, what kind of stuff are you looking for there? What should they notice, when someone comes across and says, hey, here's your report, what are we looking for?
Yeah. I guess on our end, if the home inspector says, he's going to recommend a professional to further evaluate, or, if he sees an issue with the roof, unless they've been in foundation repair before, or they've been in the roofing industry before, they're usually going to leave it pretty vague and say, have it checked out.
They got to cover themselves,
which is smart. Yeah. That's what I do too. Yeah. But especially on the foundation side, it's a little more technical. So, and they can miss stuff, just, not being negligent, really, because a home can start to tilt before it starts deflecting.
Okay.
So it'll hide itself. You won't have a major deflection point or a settlement crack running through the brick on the outside that just screams, repair me.
Right.
The whole structure could be tilting as a whole until it gets really bad.
Right.
And then it starts to show up. So if you have the home inspected in that time, the home inspector may not see anything and say, everything looks good. But I have seen a lot of them are running zip levels now, which really isn't a bad thing. I've had a few lately.
What's that? What's a zip level?
A zip level is what we measure the foundation with. So it's kind of like a fancy water level. It's in a yellow case.
Okay.
And it's got a digital box, and in the cord there's oil and gas, and it's calibrated to read out the elevations.
Is it really long, or is it short, or
very long? You can get I think the shortest cord 75 feet.
Okay, because you got to measure over a long space,
the whole downstairs of the house, including the garage. So some homes are really long too.
Right.
You get some of these other neighborhoods. So but it'll read out the elevations of the slab and plus or minus tenths of an inch relative to a 0 point that you set.
Right.
Which a slab we set towards the garage grade beam if it's close to the center of the house, or just close to the center of the slab, because slab distress is going to start outside in every time unless you have a plumbing leak.
Gotcha.
Or a bad drainage problem or something like that.
Gotcha. But, so the bigger issues, the way you measure it from, you're looking at the center of the house because you're assuming that's the most structurally sound at that point.
Yeah, like the closest true 0 we could get.
Right.
Which when you measure the slab, it's not going to be all zeros. They're not poured 100% level. There's a variance there, a tolerance for engineering standards. So as long as you're within that tolerance and you don't see any major distress, then you can say that everything looks good.
So usually, obviously, buyers are going to get an inspection, and they're going to have someone come in and look at this stuff and kind of indicate to them whether or not they think there could be a problem, that, like you said, because I've seen them before too, buyers and agents will send us home inspection reports all the time. And I'm like, I actually don't want to see that. So hold on to that. That'd be great. But we get them a lot. And, so that's a pretty typical part of the process. But what would you say if someone was selling their house, like they're about to list it for sale? Is this the type of stuff that you think is necessary? From your point of view, would you say it's necessary to maybe get some of this stuff checked out ahead of time before you list, just to kind of protect yourself?
That's not a bad idea. Yeah. I mean, be preventative and have it looked at, and then you don't have any major surprises. But it's very rare that you're going to have a major surprise in foundation repair. For the most part, it'll show itself. Sure. You're usually going to know, unless you've got severe tilt, which is about the rarest thing we run into, but it is out there.
Sure.
But it's usually caused by, we find it a lot around bodies of water. If you live around a lake, you got to be a little more careful.
Okay.
Cause you can catch it earlier. Not so much trees causing tilt. They can cause bad settlement and upheaval from the roots, forcing the slab up.
Yeah.
But your sewer line, if you get a bad sewer leak, that's not going to show up at the meter. Right. And I've seen people let them go for years
and just have no idea.
Right. And what it does is the clay is going to expand until it hits its plasticity limit. It can't take on any more water.
Okay.
And then at that point, everything under the house is going to turn into a swamp, and you may not see any signs of it outside.
Gotcha.
And so then the structure just kind of starts to sink. So when we measure it, you've got very low elevations on this end and extremely high elevations on this end. That's when it's tilted.
Gotcha.
It's about the only surprise you're going to run into. Most people know if they have a foundation problem or not.
Why, what is it about the soil or whatever up here in this area in particular? And I don't know if it's all over Texas or just North Texas, but
it's most of Texas.
It's most of Texas. Yeah. What is it about the soil that causes these issues to come up? Is that why we don't have very many basements here?
Yes, that is why.
Okay.
Now we do have basements.
Yeah.
And there are areas where you can build a basement here. It's just more few and far between.
Right.
There's a whole neighborhood of basements over by Martin High School that I didn't know existed.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I've always loved a good basement. I'm a big fan of basements.
Me too. It's where you can have your man cave.
That's right. That's right.
Watch your games.
Yes. Yes. That's
I know what you're thinking.
Yeah. It's where you take the girls downstairs, get under the blanket. I got a buddy of mine who is a loan officer in Tennessee, and he has a hilarious story about his daughter. They have a basement there, and he goes down to peeks because everybody's got blankets. He's like, no, blankets are gone. Blankets got to go.
Sure.
Blankets got to go. So, so what is it about the soil here that causes the problems?
We have a lot of high plasticity clay here, so it shrinks and swells very dramatically based on its moisture content or lack thereof.
Okay.
So we have varying degrees all over the Metroplex.
Right.
The second most expansive soil profile here is Houston black clay.
Okay.
But that's prominently what we have that causes the most issues because it's all over the place.
Gotcha.
Carrollton's made of it. Plano's made of it. Rowlett, most of Rowlett, up and down the tollway in Dallas, behind the Parks Mall in Arlington. This is just some of the hottest pockets that are out there. But it is all over the place in DFW. Now, there's other soil profiles where the plasticity is not as high, but it's still very expansive. So, I mean, you can have issues anywhere. But there's a lot of areas where you've been to my parents' house, their plasticity's in the teens. It's not really even considered expansive.
Not that big of a deal.
Yeah. It's like sand. That's why they've never had any cracks in their house and it gets zero movement.
Right.
Moisture just passes through it like sand.
So is part of the issue too that we run into, like, do you get a lot of calls when we've had a big drought or if we've had a lot of rain because the weather does so much to the soil around these homes that's when you start seeing problems pop up?
Definitely. Yeah. Well, yeah. Like this last summer was a major outlier for as long as I've been doing this. I've only seen that kind of movement 2 or 3 times.
Really? So what, I'm trying to think, was this summer dry or was it wet?
Very hot and very dry.
Okay. We didn't get a lot of rain. I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday.
Yeah, we were seeing very fast movement, very fast settlement.
Really?
Yeah.
So this maybe get to this a little bit later, but I am curious while I'm thinking about it. So, you hear about people saying you need to water your foundation. What does that really, what does that really mean? Like, you're standing out there with a hose, like literally spraying it down. Like, what are you doing?
I mean, you could,
yeah,
but what they're saying is you're trying to fight that settlement. So if we're going through a summer like that, you're trying to mitigate the retraction of the clay.
Okay.
So you're trying to keep it more hydrated so it doesn't shrink as much. Because that'll cause settlement. So they're putting like a soaker hose or something like that.
Gotcha.
Or some people have
like you have flower beds around the house and you water those anyway. You're kind of doing that anyway, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Underground drip irrigation, that kind of thing. But yeah, you're keeping the clay more hydrated, so it's more.
Do you run into any issues? So like at my house, for example, we have a pool in the backyard, and initially they had built a wooden deck that would attach the house, but it had been torn out since we had moved in. And then we kind of redid the backyard and we put decking in all the way around the house. So now there's, some sort of basically a concrete overlay all along the backside of our house. So there's not any water that's getting into there necessarily. I mean, maybe there is, and I don't know, but
you'll get some subsurface water migrating through, but you're getting no surface water.
Right. So does that cause issues, or because it's covered, it doesn't suffer the same level of drought that like an exposed ground would?
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's why you don't see it as dramatically. It'll cause a little bit because you're not getting the moisture there that you were before, but you're also not getting the retraction that you normally would. Yes.
Right.
That's why you want to run your soaker hose early in the morning, late in the evening when you're gonna do it, and through a drought like that, 2-3 times a week. But that way it doesn't just evaporate immediately.
Gotcha.
Like this last summer, I had my birthday party at our house, and we did like a murder mystery.
Oh, did you really?
Thing. Yeah, it was crazy. Had to turn our house into a tiki bar.
Okay.
And we put a big pool. It was like a 10-foot by 7-foot pool, inflatable, just for decoration. But I threw the hose in it while I was decorating other stuff, and I forgot about it, and it overflowed like the whole backyard. And
the day of the party,
the hours before the party started. So
dude,
I was
that
like,
sounds
well,
like
great.
something that I would 100% do.
I
like,
know,
no doubt in my mind.
No one's gonna be able to hang out in the backyard. It's gonna be able to hang out on the back patio. It was gone in 30 minutes. It was
just
bone dry in 30
water?
minutes. Yeah.
Oh wow.
The whole backyard was flooded.
I do that. We have to fill up our pool from time to time because it drains, but we have like a little knob or whatever. And my wife and I do it all the time. We turn on the faucet and it pours it in there, and then we go do stuff. And I come back, after work or whatever, and there's a river of water running down in my backyard. I'm like, oh god, I left that stupid thing on again.
Yeah.
So wait, okay, well, just a little sidebar here. So you did a murder mystery at your house?
Yes.
So did you like hire a company to come in and do that, or did y'all just come up with it yourself? Or
no, you order you order it from a company.
Okay.
You order the package and you assign the characters.
Okay.
It was a blast. It was a ton of work.
That sounds fun.
It was a blast.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot you're putting into that thing.
It was a ton of work. But
how many people were involved?
I think we had like 25, 30.
Yeah,
maybe.
That's a lot.
We had one of the smaller packages, but
really, oh, they come in bigger than that.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
wow.
You could add more on there.
So I guess you just kind of they give you a story. You're the only one that knows, I'm assuming, right?
My girlfriend did all that.
Oh, she did. So you had no idea, or well, I mean, you knew what you were doing, but you didn't know what the answer was.
Right, I didn't know. I ended up being the killer.
Oh, of course.
I had no idea, and I missed it on the thing. I still didn't know at the end.
Like, hey, dummy, you're the one that did this.
Mm-hmm.
That's hilarious. I didn't even know that was a thing. I have to write that down
we
too.
went to one. We went to one and had a blast. That's where we got the idea.
I've been to one. I can't remember if it was in Dallas or Fort Worth. Like we went to like a place and it was like, in a restaurant or built like they serve dinner and you do the whole thing. Like we did that. But I didn't know you could like do it at your house.
Yeah, you do it at your house. You get all these decorations. We ordered a ton of stuff off Amazon. And so we did it up. We made it more work than it had to be, I guess.
Sure. But you want it to be fun.
Yeah, it worked. Yeah, it did make it more fun.
There's a have you ever seen that? I think it's called Knives Out. That movie?
Yes.
They have the one that's the onion
the
or
glass
something.
Onion.
The glass onion. Yes. Did you watch that?
I've seen them both.
Okay. Yeah. That's basically what that. I mean,
kind of.
Obviously, there's more to it than that, but on that movie. But but that's kind of what they were doing. I mean, maybe not at the. You didn't have your own private island level.
It was fun getting the characters, and then everybody did such a good job of like dressing up and like being the character at the party. That was a big part of the fun.
Yeah, you get a few drinks and folks, and everybody likes to have a good time. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
So, all right. So when if I'm a homeowner, or let's say I'm looking at homes and I'm shopping for houses and I'm going through, especially these days, because actually it's crazy. Buyers have a little bit more. I guess I would call it not power necessarily, but they certainly have a little more leverage than they normally did, just because now it's starting to shift a little bit. But for the last, I don't know, 6 months or so, there's been more sellers than buyers because everybody was terrified of interest rates, and rates have come down a little bit. So that's a good thing. But so now you're starting to see more and more buyers getting into the market to start purchasing stuff. So now you get into a little bit more competition on properties. It's kind of starting to come up. First time in a while, I've had a couple buyers that put in offers and lost out. That happened in 4 or 5 months just because they have other people searching for houses now. So there's a shortage. But if I'm looking for a house and I'm a buyer, or if I'm a seller trying to sell my house, what kind of stuff can I look for just with the eyeball test to give me an idea that, okay, maybe this is something I want to get checked out? Because especially from a seller's point of view, and I think a lot of any agent that would watch this would understand that if you're selling your house and you find out that you have foundation issues in the process of selling it, meaning the buyer gets a structural engineer or somebody comes out and looks at it, because foundation, if you don't understand it, it scares people. They're like, oh, the house is going to fall apart,
and they don't feel like they have anybody they can trust because it's an unlicensed profession.
Yes.
So who's going to be coming over to your house and telling you need $40,000 worth of foundation?
Oh yeah. So what can well, and on the seller thing again, what happens to buyers a lot of times is if they say they have foundation, then you'll lose that buyer. They may go away and go find something else.
Right.
So if I'm a buyer or seller,
because if they don't understand it, it may scare them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What can I look for to at least give me an indication of there might be an issue? And then if I think that there could be, then what would the next step be?
Yeah. Well, the basic things would be cracks through the brick.
Okay.
Cracks and drywall in the interior. Some of the things you can look at that may be a better indicator. one of the things that we look for and home inspectors look for are the fascia trim boards where they meet in the corners.
Oh, right.
Like right above the masonry.
Yeah. Yeah.
If a
so
slab
like above the
drives,
garage or whatever, where it kind of connects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At every corner of the outside of the house.
Okay.
Outside of the slab. When it drops, it'll drop like that.
Okay.
So it'll kick those boards apart.
Okay.
So you can kind of see it's not 100% like reading it like a book, but you can tell if it's dropped or not.
Yeah.
If it heaves, it'll heave back. So you might see a gap there.
Okay.
So, the downspout may need an extension on it, or you may have a drainage problem. Or
is that more of like an initial indicator? Because I would think the crack in the brick will come, but it's going to come a little bit later than some of the other stuff will start, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you may even see something
different.
hairline before you may even see something in the mortar before you start to see something go through the brick.
Right.
And be like a large settlement deflection crack.
Gotcha.
But those are the first things we all look for. You can separation at the windows.
The door sticking thing that you hear about all the time.
That's a sign of movement.
Okay.
It's and yeah, if that's all you're seeing, most likely you don't have any problems.
Gotcha.
You may need to look at adjusting the gutters or adding gutters, or you may just have a little bit of a drainage issue where you get more movement on that side.
Yeah.
If that's all it is doors sticking or changing from season to season, but you have no significant distress, very most likely you don't have a foundation problem.
Right.
It could be something else,
settling or whatever.
Yeah, just movement. So you may get a lot of water on that side of the house in the rainy season, and in the summer it dries up, so it drops a little more. Obviously, you want to try and minimize that as much as possible, because that is where foundation problems start a lot of the time.
Gotcha.
But if that's all you're seeing at that point, you probably don't have a foundation issue.
So the issues come into play a little bit more as it kind of rises and falls. So you have a couple seasons where it's the drought and then it starts to fall, and then it comes in and rains, and then it raises again, and now you're kind of putting all this pressure of this thing moving back and forth until eventually it causes an issue.
You can get soil erosion too. So the extra water that you're getting on that side of the house, it can start to slowly wash away the soil, and you'll see that start to come down on the slab line, and then that can lose support, and then you could need piers. So there's a lot of different ways that it starts and it happens. But just keeping all that as consistent as possible throughout the year is the best thing you can do. But if you do have
keeping the soil consistent around the house,
the moisture content of the soil is as consistent as possible.
Gotcha.
The more you can minimize that differentiation and the swelling and the retraction, and that's important in those high plasticity areas.
Gotcha.
Some people don't have to worry about it as much. And it is a lot about what you're sitting on and how it's going to respond to it.
So my wife and I bought our first house in Arlington over off Shorewood, over by the lake or whatever.
Yeah.
And when we bought it, we had it for, I don't know. No, crazy enough, we bought it for $130,000. It was an 1,800 square foot house. Our interest rate at the time was like 6.5%. But, this was a nice house in the middle of Arlington, a nice neighborhood, and it was $130,000. It was great. Now, this is right before the market crashed, but even then, we bought it in 04 or 03, I think. And then in 08, everything, came crashing down. And I think we ended up selling our house for like 135, like the following year, like in 09 or 2010. So we didn't hardly lose any, even with the massive fall off that happened, we didn't hardly lose anything. But when we went to sell it, we had our first buyer came in and said they got an inspection done, and the inspector came in and said there was foundation problems. And so, and I don't know, because at the time I wasn't in the business, and neither was my wife's a realtor. So she wasn't in the business either. So we didn't know what the hell we were doing. And all we knew was that my mom was actually the realtor. And we knew that somebody had said the house had foundation issues. So the first thing we did was we called who was it? I'm trying to think of the company. We ended up having All Pro come out later, but there was another company that we had initially, and I can't remember the name of it. But this lady,
was it Permapier?
No, okay, no. This lady showed up, and she was probably in her 50s. She looked like a realtor, like she had, this at the time. She had all these bracelets and big earrings and big hair and the whole thing, and she's just like, "How are you guys doing?" She's coming in and measuring everything and chit chatting with us. This is a sweet lady. She's really nice. So she comes in, measures everything, leaves. The next day, we get an email from her, says we needed 20 piers. Okay, this is a 1,700 square foot house. We needed 20 piers. And it was like, I think it was going to cost us like 10 or 12 grand. something like that at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're both in our early, mid 20s, just barely getting by or whatever. Like, what the hell? Like, how are we going to sell our house? And so, and again, you don't know any better. So at the time we were trying to figure out, okay, what are we going to do? And I don't remember how we eventually got to like, can we just call somebody else? So we ended up calling another company. Guy came out, a little less, friendly, nice, whatever. But, he's walked through measuring some stuff, kind of chit chat a little bit, but nothing crazy. And then he was all done. And he's like, you're fine.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute. What do you mean we're fine? He's like, yeah, you got a little bit of settlement. You got this, that, he kind of gave us, I don't remember all the details of it or whatever, but he was just about, yeah, you're good. And so, we were kind of like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah. And so again, we don't know any better.
Right.
So at that point, we had one person telling us we needed 20 piers and was going to cost us $12,000. And then we had another guy telling us we didn't need any piers and didn't have to pay for anything. Well, obviously, I'm like the guy that said we didn't need anything.
Right, of course.
But, my mom at the time.
But the buyer might not.
Exactly. Right. So the buyer at the time, because we did have some cracks and a few little things in like the drywall and stuff like that, which is what caused the inspector to question it. So my mom ended up suggesting we get a structural engineer's report just so we could have it. So when buyers would come in and see it, they got it. So, and ultimately the engineer's report came in, it cost like $600, but they came back and it was fine. We didn't need anything.
Yeah,
so
$600 well spent.
Absolutely. Yeah. So why, I mean, I kind of know why, but in from your point of view, why is there such, and I hear these stories all the time, which is one of the reasons I had my sister call you, because I think they had somebody come out originally and told them they needed some kind of crazy amount of piers.
Okay, that does sound familiar.
And she's North Arlington, kind of over there in that area.
Yeah, I just forgot about that part. Yeah.
Yep. So, so that's why I had her call you. But why is there, is it just being crooked? Is that the whole thing, or is it?
I don't want to say that.
I know.
I hate to accuse people of that, but I do know it goes on. I see it every day.
Yeah.
I've even seen engineers have different opinions.
Sure. Yeah.
They're not usually that drastically different.
Right.
But I've seen them have different ideas. I've even had to tell them, hey, we'd rather do this.
Yeah.
Because we have more of the real world application.
Right.
And just talk it over with them and they agree, or you can get them to, kind of go your way. But not usually something like that. You shouldn't have 20 piers and no piers.
Yeah.
So sometimes
is it like inexperience of the person going out there?
Sometimes, and sometimes they're not trained
right
as much as they should be before they're thrown out there.
Yeah.
I feel like I was lucky because I started at Permapier and they do train the guys really well.
Yeah.
But I've seen other companies around here and run into their stuff, and it just seems to me like it was more bad training versus trying to con somebody.
Sure.
But I know that stuff does go on.
Yeah.
So it is a very valid concern. There is no licensing.
Right. Yeah. So is that just, I mean, obviously I guess that's always been the case, but why do you think that is?
Texas likes, if you want to start a business tomorrow, West. They want you to, but I mean, it's a structural repair. So you can ruin someone's house, and I've seen people do it.
Yeah.
And if you don't,
what's that conversation like when you go to someone's house that had all this work done, and then for whatever reason they call you out and you're like, man, you didn't need all this, or
it depends.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to kind of lessen.
You don't want to tell them because
you don't want to make them feel dumb, because this it's like you said.
How would they know?
Right. Like you said, if you don't do this every day, why would you know?
Right.
But still, you're gonna feel, not gonna feel good.
No.
But yeah, I have seen it. People have spent $20-something thousand with the company, and I look at the pictures of the distress and the old site map, and I just would have put extensions on the downspouts. That kind of stuff.
Would is the foundation business side of things not too dissimilar from the roofing side of things? Because I've got some other friends and stuff that do roofing, and I hear all the time about, especially when there's bad storms or where there's a rash of storms, you see all these companies just come flying in, these fly-by-nights that never been in business or was one company before and then closed down. I mean, does that happen a lot on the foundation side too?
Closed down. Yeah, for sure. And a lot of that is because they'll charge it really is, you get what you pay for, that cliche saying.
Yeah.
But it also, there are foundation repairs that are way overpriced in this Metroplex. So I'm not saying, you find a good price, it's too good to be true.
Sure.
You can find a good price. The guys that are on the very, very low end of the spectrum, they don't install the concrete piers.
Right.
And they're not going to last. They don't go deep enough. They can't afford to. They're charging less than my cost to do one of them.
Yeah,
so, but yeah, that you will run into that. And so as they do that, their warranty calls and everything are going to build up very quickly.
Right.
So they usually last about 2 to 3 years, and then they change their name.
And then they show up as
and all their warranties disappear when they change their name.
Right.
So that is one of the things that happens in foundation repair.
Yeah. So what would you suggest to somebody if they think, I mean, you don't always want to go right to a structural engineer because, if you don't have any issues, you can pay $600 to do that or whatever it costs these days. So what's the protocol? Like, obviously call you 100%, make sure they call you. But if someone doesn't know you or didn't see this, like, do you call out multiple companies? Is there, do you just go look at reviews? Do you see how long they've been in business? Like, what's some good?
I would ask, realtors are always a great,
yes.
If you know any realtors, ask them. They know because you burn a realtor and they talk and you will never hear from them or that brokerage ever again. So
that's a good point.
They're a great one. Home inspectors are a great one because they're not going to put their reputation on the line for someone who's going to do things like that.
Yeah.
But and it's not just the company. There's good companies out there that it's going to depend on the rep that comes out too.
Right.
And unless they're overseeing everything he's doing in the field, he can write you up 20 piers.
Sure.
When someone else would tell you need 0.
Yeah.
And that company may not endorse that.
They may not be a bad company. They just had a guy. Well, I use the analogy a lot because it's same thing with mortgage banks. It's the same thing with realtors working for Keller Williams or Remax or whatever. I use a school analogy as like you can go to Harvard Business School and you can have the worst professor on the planet and have a terrible experience at Harvard, or you can go to TCJC or TCC or whatever it's called these days, and you can have a fantastic professor and learn a ton, because it's not always the institution, it's more about the individual that you deal with sometimes.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. And it can be the exact same. So yeah, you can get different opinions. You can get different opinions from the same company if they send out 2 different guys.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. You can probably get some varying insight as to what you're doing there. But so tell me a little bit about what the work actually looks like. So when you go out and you recognize somebody needs some work done, I'm assuming, just based on my experience with you and whatnot, that you're going to do what needs to be done, but you're not going to overdo it because, you don't want to put, is there such a thing where if you add too many piers, you could have a problem later on or anything like that?
Yeah. you could, if you're not, especially if you're not installing them properly, the concrete ones.
Right.
We did steel on your lake house because we could have done concrete on your lake house.
Okay.
But living that close to a body of water, it's just not that it's not long term, it's not the best option.
Because the concrete erodes essentially. Is that
you just get a lot more moisture in the soil, so those would probably settle over time, and you'd need adjustments, or they could just completely fail after a while.
So you have concrete piers and steel piers.
Yeah.
Is there any other material that y'all use for that stuff, or is that it?
No. There's different forms of concrete piers, but yeah, it's either concrete or steel.
Okay. And how do you determine like how low you have to go and like where your access points? I know you guys like dug a hole like a mole under the house and you're down there cranking stuff up. So what is that? What's the whole process look like?
So it's a 2-part process, and this is concrete and steel.
Okay.
You excavate to get underneath the grade beam, or if you're doing interior pier, you tunnel or you break through the slab and get to where you can get to the cross beam, or just on the outside of the grade beam, the thick part of the concrete of the slab.
Okay.
We don't have to dig all the way down to how deep we want the pier, unless it's a poured pier, and we have to do those for certain instances. But normal, like press piling or steel or concrete press piling, you're going to use
push it down there, basically.
Okay. Yeah, we use a power team.
Okay.
It's a hydraulic press, so it uses the weight of the slab and presses down that piling into the soil.
Okay.
Once you got that press, you put another one on top. The steel interlock, and then you press it down. You just keep pressing until you hit bedrock.
Really?
Or the restrictive layer, whatever's down there. With concrete, you're restricted with your soil compaction and how much pressure you build up on the bottom of that piling.
Okay.
At some point, we're gonna hit them, and it depends on different areas and different soils how deep this is gonna be. But as soon as we have to up the up the PSI on the press over 10,000 PSI, we're gonna stop on most residential slabs.
Far enough in your
yeah, and we don't want to damage the house,
right?
And some of them we can't get to 10,000 PSI. A lot of it depends on the pour. I mean, just like there's shoddy foundation repair, there's shoddy slab pours. You'd be surprised how many of them we get into, and there's not even rebar. There's chicken wire, or there's no rebar at all.
Really?
And they poured the whole thing like a patio, like 4 inches thick.
Really? Are these like older houses, or are these even newer homes?
Yeah, it's usually older.
Okay.
But yeah, we run into them. It's not that uncommon.
Really? So they're not using rebar inside the foundation at all? You're getting into some kind of other wire that's just wow, that's crazy. Is that like a certain time period some of those homes are built, like in the 70s, 80s, 90s, or is it just
a lot? Depends? I've seen a lot in the early 80s, definitely 70s, 50s, late 50s, 60,
So the further back you go, the more likely
that they could have cut corners.
Right. Wow, I didn't know that. Chicken wire, really?
Chicken wire, yeah. There's I've replaced a bunch of driveways in Mansfield, and some of the nicest neighborhoods in Mansfield, newer neighborhoods.
Really?
There's just chicken wire.
So are some of these houses like custom built? Or are they like from actual builders? And I mean, we don't name any names.
I don't want to get specific on the neighborhood.
Yeah.
No, late 90s builds, I think most of them were that I've seen.
Is that just builders trying to cut corners, or was that just a method that they thought this would work?
Absolutely.
Really?
And for anyone who ever gets their roof replaced with us, that's one of the reasons that's in our terms and conditions for the driveway for our dump truck, because we have no idea they poured the driveway.
Oh, all right.
And we have had our dump trucks
crack a driveway.
So not fracture it, but
wow, I didn't even realize that. I guess you put something heavy enough on that driveway and it's going to give if it wasn't built out correctly.
Yeah, if it's a 3-inch pour with chicken wire. Dang. Not a whole lot of structural integrity to it.
No. So, I mean, what was surprising to me about the work is it really doesn't, I mean, obviously it depends on how many peers you're doing, but it doesn't take that long. Like, I think you guys knocked everything out in like a day or two at the most.
Yeah, yours wasn't a huge job. I can't remember how many it was.
I think it was only like, I want to say like 5 or 6, maybe.
Yeah,
it was pretty small.
Yeah, depending on how deep we have to go, that could be a half-day job.
Yeah, so you can knock that stuff out pretty fast.
Yeah.
How many crews do you guys have?
We have 3 in Dallas, Fort Worth, but we're also covering San Antonio, Houston, and Austin.
Oh, wow. Okay.
On the foundation repair side.
So those guys live down there, or they travel?
They live there.
They live there.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We were doing that for a while.
Yeah.
Our Fort Worth crews weren't real happy with me.
Yeah.
So
I don't want you doing that.
Had to figure that out for them.
So, how long do the repairs usually hold up? Like, what's the timeline on those? And I know, of course, it varies or whatever, but you know, what's generally speaking?
Shouldn't really vary. I mean, so any pier that we drive into the ground, we give a lifetime transferable warranty.
Okay.
Concrete or steel, doesn't matter. The steel piers are about as permanent a solution as you can give for settlement.
When you say, because I'm a dummy, when you say transferable warranty, what do you mean transferable?
Like if you sell the house.
Okay. So you can transfer it to the seller,
the new owner.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
Yep. It stays with the structure. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do most companies offer that transfer?
They should.
They
should. I've seen some where there's a 10-year warranty, a 5-year warranty.
Runaway.
Yeah, you do not want to.
Yeah.
If that's all the faith they have in their installs, then you can find better. Yeah.
So steel piers should last, forever.
Yeah.
Essentially,
Yeah. I mean, you're gonna have to have like a massive plumbing leak or something.
Right.
Because they're all the way down on the restrictive layer and sitting on the grid. There's really nowhere for them to go.
Gotcha. And then the concrete ones maybe have a little bit lower lifespan, but not.
No, I mean, honestly, we get almost no warranty calls on our concrete piers. If you install them right, if you get close to 10,000 PSI, then it's very, very unlikely you're going to have issues. Now, because they're not driven to the restrictive layer and you're restricted by that, driven to refusal is what we call it.
Right.
If you can hit close to 10,000 PSI, you drive it to refusal. That's what makes them last. But the plumbing leaks, drainage, stuff like that is very important for them to stay consistent and stay long-term. But we do look at that stuff before we write the repair. So we're not just going to go throw a bunch of concrete piers in an area that's got a drainage problem where we know they're going to fail and not bring it up to you.
Right. Okay. That's what I was going to ask. When you guys go do the kind of do the survey of the place and figure out what exactly you're going to do, does it also come with kind of like a prescription to say, hey, look, once we do this, these are some things you need to fix, or else you're going to have continue to have issues.
And that's for us, because they're going to be lifetime warranty no matter what. So we're going to tell you that's got to be done.
Right. That's right. Yeah, that's right. So what are some of the things, like you said?
But it'd be super annoying to a homeowner if we didn't tell them, and then they're having issues with those piers that they shouldn't have, and they've spent all this money.
So things like downspouts being in a certain location, that's a problem, or can be.
Yeah.
You said the soil. What else do you see that's typical around a house that can cause those kind of problems?
Retaining walls. If you've got a retaining wall that is starting to fail, the railroad tie retaining walls go out after a while. They rot out.
That's, I guess, that your house is sitting on. How far out usually would you? I mean,
it just depends. But if it's supporting the land that your house is sitting on, then it's pretty crucial.
Gotcha.
Sometimes we'll steel pier it and just bypass them.
Gotcha.
If you want to put off replacing that retaining wall,
right?
It's not a safety hazard,
right?
Because once we steel pier that part of the house, it's not sitting on the soil anymore, anyways.
Right.
But if it's, we won't even offer concrete in those instances if we don't know for a fact we can hit the restrictive layer.
How would somebody correct something if they actually did have some level of drainage issues? Because we had another house over off of St. Martin here in Arlington that on one side of it, for whatever reason, we always had standing water, whenever something would run it, because the neighborhood was kind of on a slope. We were on the bottom end of it. And there was one side, there was just like puddles, even after 2 or 3 days or a week of no rain, there would still be some standing water there. Like, what kind, is there only do you add soil? Do you put in French drains? Like
there's a number of things you could do. You could, it depend on what you want. You can do a berm to kind of redirect the water. I wouldn't even say French drain if you're dealing with that surface water and that's what's bothering you and it's not causing foundation. The subsurface water is not really a concern. You can just do a surface drain system.
Gotcha.
And put some catch basins in that area, let that water drain in there, and then pump it to the street with a sump pump if you need to.
Gotcha.
The French drain system is going to be more for foundation things. You've got so much water coming that it's causing upheaval on one side of the house. That's what the French drain does that like a surface drain doesn't, is it catches that subsurface water migrating through the soil. So it'll catch that stuff as well. So it can prevent upheaval. The clay underneath the house is getting less moisture. So it's not swelling as much throughout the year.
Right. So I know this is a hard question to answer because there's a lot of variables, I'm sure, but generally speaking, on an average of, let's say you're doing a small size job, medium size job, big size job, like what is someone looking at, the type of costs that would be involved in doing these type of things?
Oh yeah. It can be a very wide range.
Sure. Because I don't think ours was very expensive at all. I think for the 5 or however many piers it was, it was less than $5,000. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah. And I can't remember, but I don't think we needed a permit in the city you were in.
Probably not in Maybank.
Yeah. It was Maybank. Yeah. Okay. But I try and keep our prices very fair and competitive. Our steel piers, we do, those can range anywhere from $500 to $1,500 a piece per pier in the market here. I think we do them for $6.
Yeah.
Our concrete piers were at $390. Had to raise the prices on those for the first time in forever. Just concrete went up.
Yeah. Well, everything went up.
Yeah, everything went up.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
That was just a few months ago.
Really?
Well, I guess maybe it was about 6 months ago now. I had to do that.
Yeah.
Maybe a little longer, but I hadn't raised those prices in forever. I know our competitors have. So I think we primarily do work in real estate. That's where a lot of our marketing goes. It's where a lot of our foundation repair we do is done in real estate transactions.
Yeah.
So I try and keep them fair.
Yeah.
But we're usually trying to be more around, like structured and around that. We have more similar pricing.
Does insurance come into play here at all ever? It doesn't seem like, I can't remember it ever being a thing, but there's not a lot of policies that would cover.
It's very rare.
It's very rare.
Very rare.
Yeah. Most of the time it's out of pocket that you're paying.
I have heard more. I have heard there's been some companies come into the market that have been offering it.
Yeah.
State Farm used to have coverage that they called foundation coverage, but all it really covered was the repairing of the slab after the plumbing leak was fixed.
Gotcha.
Even if that plumbing leak caused foundation problems, that that wasn't going to be covered.
They weren't going to do.
So it wasn't really it wasn't foundation repair coverage.
Right. Is that do you think that's more of is that a nationwide thing to your knowledge, or is it just a Texas thing about insurance because Texas being having so many issues?
It's kind of like on the roofing side where we get so many hailstorms. They're now the age of your roof. They're switching you to ACV immediately. It's like that's the industry now.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. It's so prominent here. I mean, they've never covered it.
Right.
In 2 decades I've been in this business, they never covered it. And they never will, I don't think.
No. Well, it's at least on the mortgage side of things, there are, because whenever from our side, whenever we have somebody that comes through and says we'll get an appraiser, because again, we don't always see the inspections, nor do we really want to, but when the appraiser sends a report back to us, it'll say same thing, might have foundation issues. They'll say, hey, we want a structural engineer report to verify that it doesn't,
right? Whatever.
And if it does, a lot of times we can actually, we can do what's called an escrow holdback. I don't know if you're familiar with those, where basically you get, and tell me if y'all do this, but essentially you get the bid, or you present the bid, and then if it falls within a certain price range, because there are limits to how much you can do with those,
right.
Then that money will be put in escrow at the title company and held, paid for by the seller or the buyer, because you can do it either way.
Right.
And then after the loan closes, or after that, the property contract is finished, then you guys will come in and do the work, and then you'll be paid out by the title company.
Right. We do that all the time.
Does that happen a lot?
Well, most of our foundation repair is fund at closing.
Yes.
But the escrow, putting it into escrow and doing it after closing, we've done a lot of that too.
Yeah.
And with the market, just a year or 2 ago, it was so crazy. That was like one of the first times I've ever had so many where the buyer was paying for the foundation repair.
Yes.
And we do that after they closed on the house. I had never really seen that be like a common thing.
Yes.
Yeah, it's because they had so many offers. They could just tell you to get lost and get someone else.
Yep. But when they have 25 people offering on a house, they don't, they never run into those problems. Yeah. They can just say,
next one up.
It's as is, or else we're going to sell it to the next dude. Yeah. Those 2 years were insane. I mean, there was nothing crazy normal about that. It was bananas, or, I'm glad. I mean, it was great.
Yeah.
But we needed to get back to some level of normalcy. We just hope it rebounds quicker, sooner rather than later, obviously. So but speaking of that, how with real estate slowing down as it has, does that affect you guys? Do y'all impact that? Does it slow down for you too, or?
Yeah, normally,
because there's not as much, because I would imagine most of the time people figure out they have foundation issues is when they're trying to sell their house. Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the reasons we specialize in roofing and foundation repair. Right. It's just kind of happened to do the two things that I didn't plan on doing real estate construction. It's just the two things that I knew the best of what they run into the most. So, but typically it would, but we were worried about it for COVID and everything, and we just got busier. So,
well, COVID, that was a whole other thing, because then your people are just hanging around their house all day long, figuring out what do we need? We got to fix some stuff around here. I don't have anywhere to go. I don't have any activities planned, so I'm going to do some fixing.
Right. We haven't really felt it yet.
Really?
I don't know if we will.
Well, that's good. I mean, there's still, the thing about this area is DFW, especially because of our, tax climate, because of the employers that are moving in here, and all the people. I mean, I think during that 2-year period, we were like the second, next to maybe Florida, we were the second largest state of influx of people. The migration from other states, like they were coming into Texas. Yeah. So that's why the real estate properties, or the values just went through the roof, because there was so much demand for it.
I wonder where this specific metroplex was on
I mean, Austin was way up there. It was one of the number one, because people from California, they would go to Austin. But I think we were probably second, maybe, I'm not sure where San Antonio and Houston fell into that mix, but it certainly had a big influx of people coming in here. And
I definitely saw that. We had a lot of California buyers and stuff we were looking at properties for.
I bet they were freaking out too, because they were like,
they always do on the foundation stuff.
You're like, oh, hang on.
Water my house. What? But it's good when you get to talk to them and kind of calm them down.
Yes. I bet
you can see the panic on their face.
That's probably a big part of your job a little bit, is you're kind of like a psychologist to some extent. Like, hey, look, this isn't that big of a deal.
Well, they all think it's going to be like $10,000, $20,000. And then I tell them about jobs like yours where, hey, sometimes you just need 5 piers. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need nothing. You just need gutters.
Right.
So
yeah, sometimes you need a new roof. And if you need a new roof, that could be 5 or 10 grand.
Right,
If you need
exactly.
new piers, it could be 5 or 10 grand. Like, it just depends on what it is.
Yeah.
So do you, I'm curious, like how much panic you get from people, is it pretty common? I mean, I would think it's pretty common because people just they hit the foundation of the house. Oh my gosh. Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
you know what? I like those better. Not that might sound bad, but let me explain. I like those better than the when I go to a house and they think they're just doing their due diligence and getting it checked out. And as I'm measuring, I'm finding that they have like major tilts. And I'm not even going to tell you what this costs. I'm going to tell you to get an engineer. I'd rather have someone that's nervous about it, and then I can, kind of lower their anxiety versus be the one who provides all the anxiety.
Who adds it to it.
I have to do a lot of both. So
that's a pretty good tactic, actually. Now you said that, where if you run into an issue on a property that's got some based on your measurements is pretty significant, instead of you being the one going, hey, you're like, hey, let's get an engineer out here to look at this, because then at least you have not that you're not credible, but somebody with some sort of a license or whatever saying, hey, look, here's the problem.
That is part of it, especially in a real estate transaction.
Yeah.
Because, the other party doesn't know me from the con man that was doing it last year down the street.
Right.
But when I meet with homeowners, sometimes I'm going to peer the heck out of it when I find tilt. It's the only way I know how to fix it.
Right.
An engineer may say, we can get away without doing this part.
Sure.
So it could just save them money. And I'd rather have an engineer's repair plan from the get-go. I'll tell them what I think. And, if it's possible, he's going to peer, the whole front half of the house.
Yeah.
Or more.
Right.
So I'll prepare them for that. But then we have an engineer. We're going to have to get an engineer's report anyways.
Yeah.
Then we have one to go off from the get-go. And it might even save them a little money.
Well, it's kind of one of those things probably too, where it's like, you could go to a doctor that works at a university that spends all their time in a lab, studying things under a microscope, but never sees any patients. And they'll give you some kind of diagnosis. Right. Or you can go see the doctor who actually sees patients every day and knows what works and what doesn't work. And like, well, I understand the recommendation from this dude.
Right.
But he's the bookworm. Okay, here's how it works in practical, reality, right?
Yes, do run into that every once in a while.
Yeah. You get a little bit of, and I'm sure it's probably something you have to overcome too. It's like, look, I'm not trying to, spend more of your money here, but I'm just telling you, unless you don't want us to come back out in 2 years or whatever, then you probably need to fix this thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, this has been great, man. I really appreciate it. We're at an hour already, so goes by fast.
This is the most we've been able to speak since like 1999 or
forever. I know. And we were chatting it up, and I realized when you got in, I was like, oh crap, we got like 30 seconds. We got to get rolling. So so I really, really appreciate you coming in.
Yeah,
this has been awesome. Is there anything that you would like to say, or just if you want anybody to know anything about all of this stuff that we talked about, just as hey, make sure you do this or make sure you do that, or anything like that you want to say before we go?
Yeah, I mean, if you think you have a foundation problem, don't panic. Just call us. Let us come look at it.
Yeah,
it may not be that big a deal. And if you're looking to buy, if there's any issues, definitely let us take a look at it.
Yeah,
any possible issues.
Yeah.
Except for corner pops. That's
because you don't have to pay for someone to come out.
No, we do free inspections. Where it's not like an engineer. We do free inspections, free estimates.
So as a seller, that's probably not the worst thing in the world. If you're going to sell your house, you can have someone come out and do a free estimate, and a free inspection on your roof and your foundation. And then you can say, hey, look, you're good to go.
Sometimes it's not enough. I mean, some buyers are, and to be honest, I'd probably be the same way.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have an engineer look at it.
Of course. Yeah. But at least you've had somebody, that you feel pretty good about coming out and doing it. I think when it comes to stuff like this, especially because, the normal consumer just, this is the stuff we do. Nobody knows, I'm familiar with it to some extent, but just still, I'm barely scratching the surface on what this stuff is.
It's kind of like your industry. I know nothing about it.
Right.
I do know what I think y'all are going to need and ask me for.
Yes.
On my side.
Yes.
But yeah.
Well, it always comes down to me, just your, really and truly, it's kind of like your gut a little bit. It's like, okay, I talked to this person, I met them, we had a conversation, I got to kind of see who they were. Do I feel like this person is telling me the truth, or do I feel like I got a little fuzzy in my stomach that I don't know if I trust this guy 100% or this girl? It's like they're giving me the weird vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's important when you talk to somebody, if you feel good about what they're telling you and you feel like they communicate with you well, which you guys do a great job of, then you can feel pretty confident that you're getting taken care of.
Yeah, but you know what? I've had that happen where I've come in and recommended a large repair, and the homeowner kind of went or thought they were going behind my back and got an engineer to come in and look at it.
Yeah.
And then let me know, hey, I had an engineer come look at it. He agrees with you. That kind of stuff, I think, is just a smart buyer.
Yeah,
that's what I would. That's what anyone should do, really.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you wouldn't be offended by that. I mean,
no, not at all.
Ahead.
Not at all.
Let's see what we got. Because if you know that if in your heart you're doing the best job that you can do, and and heck, if someone comes in and the engineer's like, well, there's this, like, oh man, we may miss that. Okay, we didn't see that part. So no, it's that way with everything. It's all walks of life. Whenever you're getting different vendors to, whether it's your roof or your insurance or your foundation or whatever, you gotta there's a little bit of trial and error in there. You got to find really good people, and then once you find somebody that you can trust and does a great job, then you're great, which is why I had you here. So all right, brother, well, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all we got. So if you guys need if you need your roof inspected, you need your foundation inspected, you need any work at all, please give Regan and his team a call. They're awesome. They're super trustworthy guys. He's a great human being. They got a bunch of great people at their office. So we'll have you back sometime, and we'll maybe talk more baseball, right?
Yeah, please do. I'll tell my dad you said hi.
That's right. All right. We'll see you guys.